Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com again, and today's video, excuse me, is focusing on the Piedmontese style tarot decks. Now I only have 3 here to show. There's a 4th that I regrettably don't have, the Stromba, which was put out by Il Meneghello, I think in 2014, and I missed the boat on that one. Unfortunately, I don't have it. But I'm using these 3, and I can reference the Stromba and where they differ from some of these other decks. Now, as always, when we do some of these lessons, it's important to know where the Piedmont region falls in Italy, right? So we have here a full map of Italy. Here is the Piedmont region. Here we have Lombardy, so it's next to Lombardy as far as relations to other Italian regions. And here is Tuscany, where Florence would be. Here's Emilia-Romagna, which is where Ferrara and Bologna would be. Right? So if we look at the map where we put Piedmont and Lombardy in context with the rest of Europe that is in proximity to Italy, we see that the Piedmont area is nestled immediately in with Switzerland and then, of course, France. So this particular area in general of, France, Switzerland, and Italy, they would have had, I can't imagine them not having had great exchange of ideas, art, and cards, right? Now, the 3 decks that I'm using, 2 of which are from Giordano Berti's under his curation, is the Vergnano, which is, I believe, dated the earliest of the 2 of Berti's decks. I believe he dates the Vergnano Tarot as 1830. Yeah, circa. So give or take. And the next deck, which is considered from Piedmont, is the Lando. And actually, the Lando is considered the first Piedmont deck. It actually is. And this is dated 1832. So even though it's kind of tough, to determine which of these came first, but the Lando is generally credited as being the first Piedmont deck. But I'm kind of thrown by the date of circa, 1830 here. So for posterity, I will switch the order. I will switch, just in case. And then the last deck that I have is just a modern playing card deck put out by Modiano, which I presume to be like a bicycle, card company, the equivalent of like Bicycle in America for the Italian, the Italian decks. Now this deck, the pips are as we would be accustomed to seeing, but the quartz and the Triomphe cards, or the trump cards, are double-headed, and that is for ease of play. But they have some interesting developments in these cards, so that's why I'm including it. Okay, so let's take a look at the aces. In the Lando, we have what appears to be like a chalice. Right? Now, the Lando, in general, is kind of, I don't want to say sloppy, but the way it remains for us to see in these days, there's not a lot of clarity of image, and some of it has, some of using it has to do with being able to identify that, oh yes, this is the Ace of Cups. If you're new to reading TDM, I would not recommend that you buy the Lando for reading. I mean, buy it for other reasons, but I wouldn't buy it for reading because the images are not really, really crystal clear. The chalices, in a Catholic church too, they do kind of look like old, they have architectural references, at least in this image of one, where they have towers and, you know, spires. And the other two aces of cups in the Vergnano and then in the Modiano playing card, we see what I equate with Piedmontese style is the bountiful cup with flowers. I don't believe we see that anywhere else. In the Belgian decks that I just did a video of a couple days ago, and in the Gassman deck too, the Ace of Cups has like this rounded motif design on it that extends to the top, you know, and I wonder if they got it from here. They don't have the flowers, but they have this kind of rounded, you know, thing going on throughout the cup. So I wonder if they got their inspiration from here. So we can definitely see the similarities between these two cups. And this deck essentially is the way, you know, the Piedmontese Tarot deck looks today. These, of course, predate. And we can see the similarity, even in the style of cup. Now, I presume by now I'll see a drop-off point at around 6 minutes and 52 seconds for people dropping off because it's not their cup of tea. But I kind of have to say my piece about not wanting to watch videos of historic decks. You can see how they're similar, these two in particular. Is you got to do your homework, man, you know? If you have an appreciation for these cards, this is where they come from, right? You know, the Italian, Swiss, French, Belgium cards, you know. I don't know. I don't know how you can have an affinity for TDM in general, and I use the term TDM generally, right? I don't know how you can have an affinity for these style of non-scenic pick cards without having an appreciation for where they came from, you know. And here's the stamp too. Let's see, just in a, yeah, pretty much all three here share similarity, and all three here share similarity with the six as well. Well, these two in particular, not with this. Now, the Vergnano deviates, doesn't it? Unless I have 2, 4, and 3 is 9. Excuse me, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7. So these two bear more in common than the Vergnano. The Vergnano is the odd man out with a non-traditional way of putting the sevens in the arrangement of the cups. So the Vergnano deviates. So maybe the Vergnano is earlier. I don't know. Because the more modern playing deck seems to reference the organization of cups more with the Lando than with the Vergnano. But the Vergnano deviates from what would have been happening in France at that time. So the Vergnano may have just been stepping to its own beat, which is why it won awards, because it was, I guess, different enough from the norm to make it especially beautiful. And it is. It's one of my favorite decks, the Vergnano. People ask me, what's your favorite deck? And I have so many. It's hard to, but I do have a soft spot for the Vergnano, which is this middle one. Now, it's interesting with the Page of Cups. Across the board, he's got a wreath on his head, not except for this one, but across the board with Italian and French decks, I think, and even the Ruin decks, there's a wreath in his hair, and then something covering, a shawl or whatever, covering the chalice or the cup, which is, interesting. And then in his hand, he carries a hat. So he's taken off his hat to wear a wreath, and then his chalice or his cup is covered. And I always, I've never found a source that explains what this is about, Here, we don't know if the page holds a hat in his hand, but he is wearing a type of cap. But he still does have that covering his cup. All going in the same direction. All looking in the same direction. And you'll notice in the Lando and in the Vergnano, there's a window, which is not carried through to the modern deck. A window and a curtain on the side. And there is no curtain on this side. Interesting. Okay, the kings all looking in the same direction, holding the cup in the same hand, kind of with the same or similar gesture of the other arm, and looking to our right. And there's the same type of hat, crown, right? There's like a crown over a hat in all three. Okay, in the batons, we see the hand holding the cudgel type of club. But then when we get into the higher order pips, they become batons, which is kind of interesting. That always fascinated me. Again, here in the Lando, we have the stamp. So it's a, facsimile deck. We have the, whatever these things are. Some people call them yads, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm never sure. I mean, some people seem very sure of what they are. But to me, I just see them as kind of like energy, like sparks or movement. But I don't know. But they do not translate into the later deck. So I'm going to skip a bunch. I'm going to just skip a bunch. I'm going to take us to I'll just go to the tens. You'll notice that in the Vergnano there are no floral decorations on the sides. And on this one, there are. Now when we get to the club, the court cards, we get more like a club, right? We get back to the cudgel. And we have a little floating flower or lily or something up there. Again, same posture, same glance, same hat, same posture with the horse too. As with the Queen and the King. Oh, I stand corrected. The King here is gazing in the other way. The Lando King is gazing to our left, whereas the other two are gazing to our right. His head is turned, so it's not straight on. This guy's head is definitely turned. Well, that's interesting. The aces of coin. Here we have, with the flower in the center with geometric design around it. Very similar, these two, and this one different. And these I probably have upside down. Let me see. No. I have them with the written word in the correct way. And this one doesn't have written words, so. I do love how twos traditionally look like this, like the snake, or the infinity sign. Here it even becomes kind of like a lemniscate, right? Which is probably where Rider-Waite-Smith got the idea for the two of coins, with the balancing. Okay, see? You would miss that if you didn't know your cards. Now again, I'm going to skip a bunch. Maybe go straight to the quartz. Again, same posture. Same hat. Now, interestingly, like the King in the last suit, again, we have a reverse image of these two, whereby the Modiano, the more modern playing card deck, is similar, more similar to this one, whereas last time it was more similar to the other suit. So that's interesting. Queens all looking in the same direction. The headpiece shared by these two suits. And this one's a little different. It's interesting how that one lays on her head. So there are deviations for sure. These two share the similarity. This one's odd man out, but sometimes it's the other way. Okay. Now we're on to the Aces of Swords, the last suit before we get to the trump cards. And these two, the hand comes from the right. On this, it comes from the left. And aren't these pretty? I love these two. You know, the Modiano, even though it's kind of funky and it's, you know, being a double-headed kind of thing, I kind of like using it. You know, I don't use it for clients, but I use it for myself sometimes because I like it. You know, just pretty. I don't use the Lando, this one, usually for anybody. That's more for me, you know, as a study deck. But I use the Vergnano a lot for myself as well as clients. Okay, let's just take a look at these flowers in the center. Because it's so pretty. So all three of these have something different happening. They're all doing their own thing with the cage in the center. Okay, let's skip to, I'll just show you quick. Right. Now to the 10. Notice that the swords, the 8, 9, and 10 swords, you know, are like this rather than how we might expect to see them. But let's skip to the higher trumps. Do the same here. Yep, they do the same thing here. Okay, so now we're down to the pips. Now we'll see in the Lando that there's no butterfly. And the butterfly, you know, did first occur in the Vergnano. I know that's a fact. It's the first time a butterfly appeared with a full card. And in the modern day card, they honor that tradition created by Vergnano, and we have the butterfly, you know, in the Fool. And also notice like the red tail or whatever that thing is hanging from his sack. So in this case, the modern day deck definitely harkens to Vergnano. Okay, here in the Vergnano 2, I guess that's where we start to see the tradition as a cobbler, maybe. Cobbler. Now here he still has the what looks, here it's ambiguous. I'm not sure what he's got going on here. Yeah, but he does have a hammer, which is here. Eye spectacles, maybe. But here there definitely are the tools of a cobbler, like the form of a foot and other tools. I'm not really even sure why he's got a wand. And here he's got a cup. In the Parent Tarot, he's a cobbler with a glass of wine. A very austere looking woman, huh? I wouldn't want to meet her in a dark alley. And these two crowns share similarity. They don't quite look like a papal crown, but she is called the female pope, La Papessa. Imperatrice. And all three, the globe and the cross. And I guess similar style crowns with the shield of the eagle. Now in the Lando, it's kind of like a crown helmet kind of thing, whereas in the Vergnano and the modern day playing deck, they seem more similar. For the Emperor. The Pope. Stigmata on all three. Bare hands, no gloves. So, three individuals, Cupid coming from the same direction, the gentleman in the center, and I'm convinced that this third individual is some type of celebrant, or I don't know. This one definitely looks female though, kind of buxom. So I don't know. I don't think females would be celebrants in those days. So then it goes back to, is he choosing between two women? Here it looks like it could be some type of official and the young couple. But here she clearly has long hair, as does this, plus a bosom, right? What's this strange? She looks like she's got two arms coming out of her right side. That's bizarre. I'm sure it's a trick of the eye. Okay, interestingly, we have the scalloped edge. An honoring of the scallop edge here in the Vergnano, not here. Can't make out what's happening there. I really can't. And the horses are more similar in these two decks. Justice. Again, always that ambiguity. Are they wings or are they the backs of a chair? That's the age-old question. I mean, it makes sense if they're wings because justice is a virtue, so there's that, but it's not always easy. And all three appears to be a lantern he carries, a walking stick, something on his back in all three. Right, he's got something here, here, and there. Unless it's part of the hat, an elaborate, very elaborate hat, but I don't know. And the first thing that catches my eye on all three is the flame or tail or whatever. A flame. It looks like a flame coming out of a sconce. Is this like some kind of lamp? on the wheel. This one has a, well, okay, because it's the roof, it's the upside down okay, yeah, so this creature appears on both, just on this side for, yeah. And is that Lady Fortuna on the top? Kind of hard to make out who that is. Interesting. Fortitude. Wow. Okay, Fortitude. He's got his paw up. I know you can't see it in this, but in these, you see, his paw is up. So that might be a Piedmontese thing as well. And it's consistent with Lando and Vergnano. Hat's the same, with the same kind of zigzag crown. This one kind of looks feminine, but this one not so much feminine. But the claw of the lion, giving a little resistance maybe. The hanged man on the modern playing deck really cracks me up. That's all you see. Okay, so we'll look at these two guys. Well, now here you see what we see in the, I think the Noblette, and then the what was coming out of Rouen, France, and Belgium, and maybe the Swiss. I'm not sure. I have to go check. But those fingers type thing coming from the shoulders, we don't see it here in the Vergnano. The 13th card, unnamed. You'll notice, I haven't mentioned it, but I guess you'll notice that Lando likes his name on a lot of the cards, where you can stick it in there. And you can't see the completion of the scythe on here. So we have the death image with the scythe and body parts. Look at the black flower here. I think it's black or blue. I can't make it out. My eyes aren't so good anymore. I think it's a black flower though. Or very deep blue. Fortitude. Clearly with the wings, as she is a virtue. And in all three, she has a headpiece with a flower. Not in this one. I thought she did, but she doesn't. In the double, we see the face in the belly. Wow, that's so cool. In this one, you have to, there's like, it's got a very heavy overlay of red, but I don't know if you can see traces of an image underneath the red. And so you have to ask yourself too, like over the years when, you know, decks come to us and, you know, colors bleed or, you know, they fade or whatever, you wonder what detail we lost, because we can see that there's something underneath that red, but it's lost. So in the Piedmont, he's like not so much sitting, like standing on a podium, but it almost looks like he's standing in a vessel. But I guess it is a podium of sorts. Looks like the Ace of Cups kind of motif that I pointed out before. But clearly with the stomach, face, and a dandy hat with feathers. Oh my gosh. And his, you know, his wings rather, are different than the wings, you know, of the other virtues, right? So, you know, to distinguish him from a virtue, right? He's got more like a bat wing. The Tower. It seems like in the Piedmont style, you know, they show the arrow. It's coming from here, in case you didn't know, right? They're showing that it comes from there. And here, I guess you just kind of more or less understand that it's coming from a thunderclap cloud. You don't really see the person falling here because it's cut off before the foot. But again, remember that this stack, right, is for playing. So these were two. But so we have the image of the star as the constellation Aquarius. These two, more similar than this. They all vary in number of stars. But they all have in common the central style, more or less. And this one has a bird, and there's no bird in the tree in the Vergnano, nor in the modern playing card. So bear with me, we're almost over. The moon. All the ingredients seem to be there. Again, they have these rays or droplets. This one does not. This one has a mountain, I guess, landscape. These two seem to more or less have flat earth, water below, towers on the side or buildings, and the moon. Okay, we go to the sun. Two youths of undetermined gender here. Maybe male and woman here. I don't know here. Bright sun and a wall behind them. We don't get the wall here. Judgment. Sometimes referred to as the angel. Yep, the angel. Yeah, the angel in Piedmont, right? And they call it the angel in the modern day too. And here, it looks like the figures that would be awoken or like there's like a hell, like a fire or something, right? Which is kind of different. We don't see it in this, nor do we see it here. This guy's like laying down sideways. And then the world card. In these two, the Lando and the Vergnano, a woman, as well as here. And then the four biblical, or here, two biblical, because they're just repeated down below with the four biblical creatures. So there we have it. It's interesting, I think, to see cards throughout history, how they differ from one another, how they influenced one another. I don't know. I don't think you can have an appreciation for these cards in general without having an appreciation of how they influenced one another and maybe misunderstood what they were copying from a different culture, you know? Like all these things, they just fascinate me endlessly. Okay, so the decks I showed again from the Piedmont region of Italy, right here, as it is nestled in against, you know, France and Switzerland. You know, so here the little hub, you know, and Marseille right there, right? Marseille, excuse me, Marseille right here. So what a hub of tarot history, right? What a hub. Oh my goodness. Too bad so many decks are lost and, you know, not even, you know, not even, don't even know where they are. Or, you know, maybe we have reference to them, written reference to them, but we don't have any cards that exist anymore. What a shame, right? I wish we did. At any rate, I hope, you know, this one was really for the geeks, those of you who are really interested in seeing a few Piedmont style cards. Until next time, friends, peace and stay well.